The people, the headlines, the issues impacting you and your family. This Week in Cincinnati on 9 on your side.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Cincinnati. I'm Craig McKee. First today, it is the middle of summer, as we know, but a lot of work is underway to prepare for the start of the new school year, and that includes school security.
Where's he at? Where's the shooter at?
Hundreds of people and 11 school districts took part in the exercise at Ross High School and Middle School last month. It was the largest full-scale safety training in Butler County history. The exercise was coordinated by the Butler County Educational Service Center. And joining us right now to talk a little bit more about that and the lessons already learned from that exercise is Catherine Clayton with the Butler County Educational Service Center here. Scott Gates, that is the superintendent of Ross Schools, and Officer Brian Rogers with the Ross Township Police Department. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
One thing that made this drill a little different was the setting. Typically, when we cover these drills, you're in a classroom setting, and that goes along with the annual ALICE training that's required by the state, and you're able to barricade doors and go through certain protocols. Talk a little bit about what made this so different.
So one of the things in Butler County that we've been doing is trying to take schools and school districts out of their comfort zone. We're very comfortable with Monday through Friday 8 to 3,
Sure.
Tornado drills, safety drills, fire drills. But what happens if this is after school during a football game, which we've experienced in this region before, or during a school meeting for a Washington, D.C. trip, something where you're not fully staffed, right. You have parents, volunteers, visitors that are not familiar with your safety protocols, and maybe there's only one administrator there. So we wanted to really test our districts in communications, notifications, our population protective actions, as we call them, our lockdowns and our evacuations. Mm-hmm. And Ross Local Schools very kindly volunteered to be the guinea pig for this exercise, and my other school districts were all on board. And Officer Rogers and the whole Ross Township Police Department was incredibly supportive, and they were also able to do some new developing responses to active shooters as well.
And let's talk about that a little bit, Officer Rogers. We're looking at some of the video obviously play out there. I think in one of those shots you were actually running into one of the classrooms there. One of the challenges, and maybe you can talk about this when you talk about those injured during these scenarios, the fake injuries that are there for not only first responders, paramedics, everyone to discover. A lot of times, the shooter's in a classroom or two or in a hallway specific in an area in the school, and so to check those rooms maybe for people who are injured.
Right.
In this scenario, if you're talking about a football game ongoing or a track and field event, an outdoor event where people are scattered and all over the place, does that raise a bigger challenge? And if so, what kind of lessons did you learn from this?
It definitely raises a bigger challenge. One thing about the exercise that we wanted to focus on, like Catherine said, was our communication. Mm-hmm. We brought in multiple jurisdictions. We had probably at least 50 or 60 different police officers from all agencies of Butler County as well as outside of Butler County to either come and participate with us or to watch the exercise. Mm-hmm. One thing that we also had was we had a few fire departments involved, and what we're trying to do is develop an RTF program or a rescue task force program in Ross to where law enforcement and the fire department can work together in these situations. You're talking about injured people in these situations. We have to go in and neutralize the threat, which is what we practiced in the scenario, but then we have to go back and make sure that we help the injured.
Sure.
Bringing in the fire department, we have to make sure that we bring them in with a law enforcement officer, armed personnel, so they stay safe as well, because it happens so quick in these situations. You never know if the school or the building or the field is completely secure. So we want to make sure that our fire department is protected just like we are.
From a district standpoint, this goes a little bit above what the annual requirement is for training. What should the parents of your district, reflect on, I guess, from what you guys discovered and even some of the lessons you've now learned?
Well, it's my hope that not only the parents of the Ross Local School District are reflecting, but the parents of all districts in Butler County, because this was a concerted effort with all the districts.
Right.
And I think what it says to the parents of Butler County is that we are looking at other ways and other areas that could be vulnerable. And in my district, it's my hope that our parents are proud of what we've done in terms of looking at those other areas, those other vulnerabilities, and making sure that we are prepared in the event that it's a Thursday night in September and there's 11 events going on in 3 different buildings and something bad happens. Mm. And it could be an active shooter, it could be a weather event, it could be right out in front on 128, a crash. we're now able to look at how do we communicate with our parents, how do we communicate with the districts, how do we work with social media, which is obviously a huge, thing that that we deal with, and I think our parents should be proud in Butler County because it's my view that this I don't think has ever been done anywhere of this magnitude.
There are always lessons learned from these events. Can you name a few things that you said, all right, we really have to drill down and figure out what went wrong here, what can we adjust here? What are some of the lessons learned here?
As a police department, we have a very good working relationship with our school district. I don't want to say that it's something we may need to work on. I feel like our communication is good with them. In this scenario, we always train. We don't train to the point where you get it right. You want to train to the point where you don't get it wrong. With the communication with our school district, with Butler County, we want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
So were there communication issues that during this scenario that played out?
Absolutely.
And was that radio technology, or what was that communication breakdown? Is that just talking about we're responding here, get your people to the safe place? I mean, what are we talking about that when we say communication issue?
I think it was missing steps within the training. I know it came from our part when the scenario started, when the shots went out. As law enforcement, we're making entry, and you saw me in the video going in. We forgot to communicate with the school district, and they didn't realize, hey, we're making entry.
Gotcha.
And that was on us, and that's something that we learned, hey, we've got to be talking. We were talking amongst ourselves,
Right.
but we weren't talking to them.
Because you guys are on a mission. You're moving towards the shooter
Exactly.
to minimize the situation and take care of that. And so there's that, hey, listen, we're going in right now, just trying to keep them in the loop, and that way
Exactly.
they're still moving their parts, but they know where your officers are.
Correct.
Right,
in
exactly.
the scenario. there.
Communication is always going to be an area of improvement,
Sure.
no matter what. And so especially with this exercise, we're working with our districts, and they have great relationships with all their law enforcement officials. But bridging that gap of when something happens, communicating and having that liaison that can help relay information faster and better. And even within our own districts, we saw that we weren't utilizing all the communications that we could. You tend to focus on your problem, and you may have missed something that you could have, that piece of information that you could have helped you earlier.
And communication obviously is key because at the same time this emergency is going on, students are texting their parents saying, hey, we have an
Absolutely.
active shooter, we have something going on. They're texting us or calling us saying, hey, there's an active shooter situation going on. So then, of course, we're responding to the scene. Do you find a critical role for the media to play, to make sure correct information is getting out there to the family members involved in this, but then also make sure the situation's being covered and they're safe? There's kind of a balance you guys have to look at there for the media.
With social media, as wonderful as it is, traditional media is still always the best bet to reach your largest audience. And especially for rumor control, and having a great partnership with our media, which you all did a fantastic job with the exercise, and we appreciate your ability to come out and cover it.
We appreciate being invited out.
Absolutely. So we always want to keep that open because that's a great way to help spread our information. We only have so many avenues to communicate with. You have a much larger avenue to use and to utilize.
Well, obviously the coverage of this is over on WCPO.com. I want to thank Catherine Clayton, Scott Gates, and Officer Rogers. Thank you all for being here today, and continue to keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll continue to follow any developments in your protocol and your plan.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, up next, bringing jobs and businesses to Hamilton County, the public agency that supports everything from new housing to new stadiums.
The people, the headlines, the issues impacting you, all on This Week in Cincinnati on 9 on Your Side.